5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Coming to you live as Lichtman Live. Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Hey, we just finished the debate. Now you're going to get our expert commentary. Although, again, I've already made my prediction. The debate doesn't change anything, but it still, gives us a chance to analyze the candidates and how they did. Samuel, what did you think?
I thought that Trump was totally nuts, off his rocker. I mean, if any other presidential candidate if you were to take any other presidential candidate, switch their performance, and keep their name, they would say it was the worst debate performance in history. But somehow he gets away with being that crazy. I guess some people like it. It kind of works to his advantage. I thought Kamala was good. I thought she made her points well. I think she didn't do great responding to a lot of Trump's lunacy, but I think she wiped the floor with him.
I completely agree. And, Trump had a lot more speaking time, like 5 or 6 minutes more speaking time because the moderators were terrible. I don't understand how bad the moderators have been in the two debates. I've moderated debates, vice presidential debates, and third party debates, but it's the same thing. I never would have let that happen. Trump just bowls over them, constantly speaks, but the truth is, every time he spoke, he hanged himself. He didn't help himself. He constantly took the bait from Harris, rambled, got off topic, got defensive, even defended his full page ad calling for the execution of 5 innocent people of color. Can you imagine that? But I think the one thing that people are going to remember from Donald Trump, because it was so astonishing, is the idea that immigrants in the cities are eating cats and dogs.
Ah, not keep
That is
going.
something people can understand and relate to. Yeah,
Keep
it is our
going.
dog. I don't think an immigrant has chased him, have they?
No, I haven't seen any immigrants coming after him.
That's something people can understand how crazy it is. You don't have to understand policy. You don't have to be an expert in foreign policy or the economy. The other thing I think people might remember from Trump is I don't have a plan, but I have concepts. 9 years, I have concepts. And what I think they'll remember from Harris is her turning to Trump and saying, "You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me." And he really was still thinking he was running against Joe Biden. I agree with you. I thought she wasn't as sharp as she could have been in, responding to his lies, but that's hard. You know, he had so many lies, and I thought she should have been a little better. Nancy Pelosi had nothing to do with protecting the Capitol. He never ordered 10,000 guardsmen. There aren't, tens of millions of immigrants pouring into the country. Undocumented immigrants commit crimes at lower levels. Crime is down. I actually thought the one good thing the moderators did was kind of a mini fact check, pointing out, hey, there are no states that allow uh, babies to be killed, after birth. That's just nonsense. Or, FBI data shows crime is down. But she had him on the defensive the whole time. And even though he spoke longer, I thought every time he opened his mouth, he hurt himself. I'm not sure a single coherent argument in his favor came out, except at the very end, when she had no chance to respond, and everybody was tuned out anyway after an hour and 40 minutes. He finally made the one argument that his handlers were stressing should be the centerpiece of his debate, but he was so busy defending himself, didn't come out. And that is, hey, you've got all this vision stuff. Why didn't you do it for the last 3.5 years? Good argument. The only good argument he had, it's answerable, but it didn't come out until, the 1 hour and 39th minute of the debate. And I doubt if at that point anyone was paying attention. The worst answer, as your brilliant mom points out, who's an environmental activist, remind everybody of her pack.
I can't remember it off the top of my head, and
Vote Climate
she'll
Pack.
get mad at me if I get it wrong.
Vote Climate Pack US.
No, that's not
Uh,
it. No, don't even say it. Don't even say it. I don't know. She'll text
Vote,
me it,
vote
Mom.
climate US PAC. That's it. I always get it wrong. Any rate, that was a terrible answer on climate change. She was trying to have it both ways, where, you know, for climate change, but we want to, build up all these big industries that pollute and contribute to climate change. But Trump is 10 times worse on climate change. So, but that was really her one terrible answer, I thought. And I thought pretty much all of Trump's answers till that one line at the very end were pretty terrible. And as I said, all people are going to remember is immigrants eating cats and dogs.
Was that you've watched a lot of debates. Was that the craziest thing you've ever seen on a debate stage in terms of what a presidential candidate has said?
I've been watching debates since Kennedy Nixon in 1960, and that is by far the craziest thing. And he said it gratuitously. No one asked him about it.
Right.
Just, oh, I
He
think this
just
is a
offered
great
it up.
argument to make that, immigrants are eating our cats and dogs. Not only is it crazy, but it is so demeaning to immigrants,
Yeah, it
that they're
is really.
barbarians.
Yeah, it is really not. If you think about it and you dig deep, it is really, really racist and terrible to say that about immigrants. That immigrants are eating pets. I mean, it's really dirty, racist crap that he was saying there.
It really is, and just abysmal. And then vote climate US PAC.
Right, and
Your
it's vote.
brilliant mom just, and the website is voteclimatepac.org. And she produced the world's only voter guide for national and state offices that deals both with incumbents and challengers, which you have to do if you're going to have, real information to voters. So check it out. Voteclimatepac.org. All right, I think we've said enough.
You
Let's
do?
open it up. Well, I could go on and on,
Well,
as you know,
I want to
Professor.
I want to run a couple of things by you. The
Okay.
first thing I was pretty shocked. I mean, I haven't really been following what Trump is saying because he's just so nonsensical on the campaign trail. But I thought it was pretty remarkable that when David Muir asked him, "Do you want to see Ukraine win this war?"
He wouldn't
he
answer.
wouldn't answer it. I mean, that's pretty. And I think Kamala responded to that really well, saying he won't answer because he would give Russia what they want. I thought that was pretty striking.
I thought that was very striking. And of course, he wouldn't say how he would end the war, just said, I'm going to end it immediately. He didn't say how he would deport 11 million undocumented immigrants. It's not as if they live in communities with big signs, undocumented immigrants live here. They're mingled in with the general population. They Their kids are US citizens. They're married to US citizens. They're married to legal residents. They're married to their kids are legal residents. You would have to go through tens of millions of people asking them to produce your papers. What does that remind you of? And I assure you, lots of US citizens might not have papers, to prove that they are US citizens. It's not always the easiest thing to do. If you don't have your birth certificate or you don't have a US passport, how do you prove it? It's not an easy thing. And of course, he never said, how he would go about doing this.
Yeah.
What else?
What's that?
What else do you want to ask me?
Another thing that stood out to me is maybe if you're a Trump supporter, maybe if you're not following things, this might sway you a little bit. He keeps going with this line, if I was president, Ukraine never would have happened. Israel Hamas war never would have happened. But the issue is you can never prove that, right? But I do fear
Right,
that
it's an empty statement.
that
Remember,
maybe
yeah,
people eat that up. They do say, well, yeah, this did happen when Biden became president. It did happen after Trump left. But, I don't know if people realize, like, you can't prove that. He can sit there and say all day, it wouldn't have happened under me. I would solve it in a day, but it's not a provable thing.
no, of course not. You can say anything you want, but as our audience knows, I hate dealing with speculation and hypotheticals because they're unprovable. I could say anything I want. You know, I could say, if my system had been in effect not just 40 years, but 100 years, I would always have been right in prediction. Sure, I could say that. You can't disprove it, but I can't prove it. just like Trump's statements, if I was around, everything would be fantastic.
I was also struck by Trump's fear mongering. He's done the immigration fear mongering forever, but he ended his closing statement basically was like, if you elect Kamala, we're gonna end up in World War III and end up in a nuclear war. I mean, it doesn't get much more bleak than that, right?
No, he's so bleak and so negative. And I don't recall any specific plan he had for anything. He said on
He
healthcare, I
never
have
has.
concepts.
He never has.
Yeah. I mean, whether you like them or not, she had a lot of specific plans. I'm not necessarily supportive of all of them, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah. But he never has had any specific plans. But again, I guess if you're super bullish on immigration, which that's I'm being polite about saying that because his rhetoric around immigration is racist. But if you're super bullish
And
on
and
immigration,
false, phony.
right? But if
Immigrants commit crimes at lower levels
I
than
guess
native. There have been numerous studies proving that.
yeah, but if you're super bullish on immigration, if you buy his stuff about foreign policy that he would get this all done and never would have happened under him, I guess you could see that as a decent debate for Trump. But outside of that, I mean, again, if you would replace him with anybody else, it was a nonsensical total, and she was getting under his skin too, which was kind of fun
She
to
sure
watch too.
was. She was really
Yeah,
baiting him and
yeah,
making him very. And I don't know. Your mom also pointed out his body language and his facial
yeah,
expression.
yeah.
She said he looked like a harassed husband who was being nagged by his wife constantly and in deep pain over it.
Yeah, he looked extra like an angry turtle tonight. You could tell that at times she was roasting him. I mean, she was really getting
He
him.
was really, and it got under his skin. And, he can't, he's bad enough when you don't get under his skin in terms of his bombast, but he's a lot worse when you do get under his skin. Now, I agree with you. If you're really, immigration is your top issue, you really think it's destroying the country, then what he said probably resonates with you. But he already has those people,
Yeah, yeah,
the extremists on immigration already. They're part of his base, and he can't win with his base. He's got to expand the base. And I can't see the suburban women who are the swing voters here not being turned off by Trump.
Speaking of women, we forgot to mention that he was also talking about doctors executing babies,
I know.
executing born babies.
Yeah. And the moderators correctly pointed out no state in the country allows that. That's just total lie.
Yeah. Should we do a poll, Dad? Who won the debate?
Yes, please.
All right, let's
How many
see.
viewers do we have? I know it's late and all.
We have 5,300 viewers.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Wow. That's
So
really good.
okay,
Yes, do your poll.
who
Who won the
won
debate?
the debate?
Trump, Harris, Harris, Trump.
Donald Trump. I mean, obviously our audience is pretty
We understand our
right,
audience is not a representative sample.
right. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think she did maybe not the best she could possibly do, but pretty well. And again, he and we were talking about this earlier. The way he speaks and he just rambles and like the fifth grade level of vocabulary uses, it just sort of as he's rambling, saying all this nonsense, saying everybody says that this, it just starts to
Everybody wanted to get rid of Roe
right.
versus Wade
It
and,
just
return it to the states and.
it just starts to numb your brain a little bit. Like by the end of that, I was just listening to him, and I'm, even like undecided voters. I gotta imagine that his just rambling, grievance-filled nonsense. Eventually, it just starts to numb my brain. It's got to start having an effect on those people too, right?
Yeah, I can't think of one positive thing he said, except,
Uh,
these empty nonsense. I'm going to end the war tomorrow,
right, right, right,
things like that, which, sure, you can say anything you want, but you were asked how and you had no answer. You were asked how you would deport 11 to 12 million people. You had no answer.
right, right.
It was, I agree with you. I thought she could have been a little better, but that's nitpicking. The
Yeah,
one thing I think she could have been sharper at was responding to some of his lies, but I think she deliberately made a decision that she wasn't going to try to fact check him. that she was going to continue to be positive and optimistic and contrast, his negativity with hers rather than get into, a tit for tat on facts. That might have been the right decision. It's not the one that would appeal to me, being an analyst and a former debater, but it was probably the right decision for the swing vote audience.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're just gonna take things that Trump is saying in that debate at face value, and either candidate, if you just listen to them and say whatever they say is true, you're not being a very informed voter, anyways. So her spending all her time fact checking, like you said, probably wasn't a great use of her time.
No, I don't think so. As I said, something I would love to do, but that's why I'm not a good political candidate, maybe.
That's why you're a smart
Much
guy.
better political analyst than candidate.
That's why
Would you
you're
agree with that?
that's why you're a smart guy, Dad.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to get some?
Maybe you'll be president someday.
No,
No.
no.
I always thought your mom could be president, but
Yeah,
she doesn't want to be.
my mom could be president.
Yeah. Question.
You ready to get into questions, Dad?
I am.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say something after that, but that was the end. You just say I am. Oh,
Oh, I want to say one thing. It's a
oh,
little off topic, but it
oh.
just came out today. Remember, I've been railing about the error margin of the polls, saying it's
Yes.
not plus and minus 3%. That's just statistical error. When you pile on all the other sources of error, it's much bigger. Just today, the first poll I've ever seen actually takes into account the full range of error. And get this, it said the poll, the confidence level of the poll is such that unless the spread between the candidates is 10% or more, you cannot be 95% confident about the margin between them, which means all the polls you're hearing. And the media, listen, almost every minute, every few hours, they're jumping on the latest polls. Aha, Trump has come back. Harris went back ahead. It's all meaningless because all those polls are noise.
There you go. All right, you ready to get into some questions?
Yes.
Member Alex Kawa says, "Can we all just agree that Harris's reactions to Trump's meandering nonsense was very relatable?" What do you think, Dad? What do you? She was sitting there often, sort of reacting, frowning, laughing at him. What do you think about that?
I didn't like it much, but
Really?
it probably appealed to the audience. I prefer more of a neutral, but you know, I guess he's spewing such nonsense that her incredulous looks maybe were justified, but his facial expressions and body language were just awful.
Yeah, maybe she overdid it, but
I thought she overdid it.
but yeah, but I feel like she needed to do it because some of the shit he was saying was so nuts that she needed to just be like, "What the fuck are you
What are
talking
you
about?"
talking
Yeah,
about?
like
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, maybe she overdid it a little bit.
I thought she overdid it, but that's a nitpick.
Yeah. Um, Member MA2B2 says, "What reasons would Harris have in not answering questions that would actually be good for making her case during this debate? I felt like she had an opportunity to make the case with the very first question asked about her, about the economy. Thoughts?"
I thought she did make the case on the economy. She talked about her subsidy plans, her tax plans, her support for small business, manufacturing. Not much more you can do in, 2 minutes. So I don't quite understand that question. You may agree or disagree with what she said, and I don't agree with it all, but that's irrelevant. She did lay out her plans as what best you can. This is not,
Yeah.
a policy seminar.
I kind of agree. I think she did miss a few opportunities.
Oh, I
Again,
thought that too.
this is very nitpicky, but yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought so too, but pretty nitpicky.
she
And I
felt,
thought a few times she dodged things because she wanted to. She really
yeah.
dodged the worst thing for her, which was Afghanistan.
Yeah, and any politician is classic at answering the question that you want to be asked and not the question that is asked. And I noticed her doing that a few times,
A
answering the
few
questions
times.
that she wished was asked instead of answering the question that was
But you would
asked.
think with Trump, every question was about immigration.
Right, of course. Um, and to me, she felt very prepared, which is not a bad thing, but I think that might have kept her from, again, rebutting Trump and being perfect about answering every question. As
She wasn't perfect, but
right.
she was very good, and Trump, I thought, was awful. And I'm not being biased here. If I thought, that she lost the debate, I would say so. My analyses have nothing to do with my politics, as we know, or I never would have predicted Trump in 2016 or Reagan in 1984 or George W. Bush in 2004. I can go on and on.
Member Earth Girl says Trump just said at 10 p.m. Eastern that Putin endorsed Harris. Is that true?
Yes, a poison pill. Obviously, Putin's endorsements are not a positive in America. So by endorsing Harris, he's obviously throwing a poison pill into American politics.
Right. Fair point. Um, let's see. Breaking news, Dad.
Yeah.
Our Jasmine Goddess broke this, and I just confirmed it 9 minutes ago by NBC News. Taylor Swift has officially endorsed Kamala Harris.
Wow, that's much bigger than Putin endorsing Kamala Harris, I would think.
I think. Well, I think it. I mean, I think it'll sway a lot more voters than anything Putin says, right?
Oh, yeah. No, the way Putin is trying to sway voters is by misinformation and by using his bots and trolls and hacking to support Trump. It's patently obvious what he's trying to do. One missed opportunity I thought Harris had was when Trump brought up Viktor Orban as his model.
Yes,
I
I
thought
yeah,
she should have driven that into this is, one of the worst autocrats
I
in the
agree.
world who snuffed out his political opponents and eliminated the free press in Hungary. That's who you model. I thought she missed a big opportunity there.
I totally agree. Yeah. Again, sort of back to our point that she didn't do a very good job rebutting him. But
Right. And that, I think, was a deliberate decision. One I
right.
don't necessarily agree with, but I understand why they wanted to make. But I thought that one
That was a
point,
missed opportunity.
that
Yeah.
was a missed opportunity
Yeah.
because she kept saying, you love dictators. But boy, here he was right out there, you know, putting out his model, one of the worst dictators in the world.
Yeah. Windows 95 with a $50 donation. Thank you so
Nice.
much.
Love those donations.
They say this was the political equivalent of Street Fighter 2. I have a question for Alan. If you decided to make your prediction after the debate based on the debate tonight, would you have still predicted Harris?
I don't make my predictions on debates. But if you ask me who performed better, I thought Harris performed better, partly because Trump was so awful. And she was at least okay, at least good, and Trump was just terrible.
Right.
I can barely come up with a coherent thing he said.
Yeah, his main points were immigration, I'm the best foreign policy leader,
And they're
but
destroying the
and they're
country.
destroying the
They're going to cause
country.
World War III.
Yeah.
What nonsense.
Yeah.
We're not a destroyed country.
Matthew says, "What about Trump's claim about having no standing for why all his legal cases were rejected?"
False. There were some cases that were rejected on standing, but other cases that were rejected on substance. A Federalist Society judge, a Republican appointee in Pennsylvania, having looked at the evidence they presented, called it a stitched together Frankenstein monster of evidence. The Wisconsin, I think it was the Supreme Court, said the same thing, not in such colorful language, about the evidence that was presented. So it's absolutely false that courts did not consider evidence. They considered it and they found it ludicrous, not just, not quite there, but nowhere, absolutely ludicrous, ridiculous evidence. And let's not forget, Trump hired a company which he said was going to prove that the election was stolen, and the company found the opposite. And Trump, of course, never reported what they found, but they went ahead and reported it on their own.
Member Miles Wolf says, "Do you think Harris did better in this debate than Clinton did in 2016, Hillary Clinton?"
I think so. Yeah. Again, it's a long time ago and I'm old. to the best of my recollection, I thought Harris was a better debater than Clinton, even though Clinton won all the debates against Trump. But I didn't think, they were triumphs. But the biggest thing about this debate was less Harris than Trump. Even though he spoke a lot more, every time he spoke, I thought he hurt himself with moderate swing voters. I don't think a thing he said is going to, persuade a suburban woman, in suburban Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Member PV Kip 999 says, "Why won't Trump just give up challenging election results?" And there was this weird moment with David Mears quoting Trump, and then Trump saying, "Oh, I was being sarcastic. I really do still think I won the election." And David Mears saying, "I watched those clips, dude. You weren't being sarcastic." Kind of a strange flip flop from Trump, but now he's back and saying, all this election fraud was real and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, a losing proposition for Trump. Again, yeah, that appeals to your core base, which you already have, but it's not going to appeal beyond that core base. I think Trump is obsessed, with appealing to his base and getting the adulation at the rallies. There he is talking about crowd size and, whether people left his Why in the world do you want to talk about that nonsense? She baited him right into that.
Yeah. And I wrote down at one point what his proof was for election fraud. Let me see if I can find it. He said, "There's so much proof, all you have to do is look at it." So that was his evidence for this widespread.
Right. Look at Detroit. Look at
Right.
Philadelphia.
But he provided
That
no
was
actual concrete
nothing.
nothing
This
about
doesn't have
election.
anything.
Right, of course. He doesn't have anything.
How's our poll doing?
Let's check in on the poll. We have 4,649
Wow.
votes right now, and Kamala Harris is winning 95% to 5%.
Well, even in a skewed sample, and our sample is skewed,
Sure.
we didn't get anything like that in the Biden-Trump debate, did we?
I don't believe so, no.
Not even close.
No.
It was, I think, 60-40 or something like that. So I think that says something.
I agree, yeah.
That's a lot of people. Right. I can go about another 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. This is a short one. I'll go live
Yeah,
afterwards.
but it's late. And I have
Oh,
other interviews to do, believe it or not.
oh, it is?
Yeah, late night interviews. Hey, I
Okay.
see your dog. He looks cute.
How do you see my
I
dog?
don't think an immigrant is about to smash through your door and eat him.
Keeks, are you worried?
He doesn't look worried. He looks very calm.
Very calm. Okay. Let's see. Not a ton of questions tonight. If the
All right.
GOP is successful in shutting down the government, does this help Trump in November?
No, I don't. I've already made my prediction. So none of these ephemeral events affected. And every time there's a shutdown, the Republicans get blamed for it anyway. So I don't see how that helps Trump if Mike Johnson engineers a shutdown, which I don't think they're going to do.
That's what we always say. They're not going to do it, but then they end up. Yeah, I don't
Well, they
know.
haven't done
They
it in
haven't done
quite
it
some
in a
time.
while.
Yeah.
Carlos Ortiz says you
And,
mentioned.
oh, another thing about doing that is, do you want to anger a million federal workers and their families who would come out to be, several million people who vote?
Yeah. A question from Carlos Ortiz. You ready, Dad?
I'm always ready.
You mentioned, Professor, that Trump has a narrow fan base. Wouldn't that work for him in swing states like Wisconsin and Michigan in the context of electoral vote victory?
No, because even in those swing states, as we saw in 2020, he can't win just with his base. So I don't think just appealing to a narrow base is going to be enough.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm trying to create my live at the same time as finishing this live.
Yeah, we'll finish up in about 5 or 6 minutes. You can get on to yours.
Oh, thanks, Dad. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Judge Chutkin on Trump's D.C. case now that she ordered Jack Smith to disclose all the evidence to the public before the election?
Hey, Judge Chutkin is the best judge I've seen, and she's done the right thing. You know, this courtroom has nothing to do with the election. That's your day job. Lots of people have day jobs that interfere with their court appearances. Tough. That's not the way it works. And I think she's absolutely right about that.
Right. Next question is from Rings Fan 1. Do you think Harris will be more or less progressive than Biden? And what will the first 2 years of her presidency look like if the Senate is held by Republicans?
Well, I could spend a whole class on that, but I'm going to give a very short answer. I think she'll be about the same. Biden is progressive. He's not Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, but he is progressive in the spectrum of American politics, and so is Harris. She's not a Marxist like Trump, absurdly claimed she was.
Right. How much longer do you have, Dad?
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
If we
Okay.
have enough questions, otherwise we can terminate any time.
No, we got plenty of questions.
Okay.
Um, Patrick Murray says, "Can you
One of our
explain?"
great loyal viewers.
Yeah, true. Can you explain what eminent domain is and how to prevent it at the local/state government level?
I'm going to skip that question because let's focus on the debate.
Okay.
You can ask that another time, but I'll give you a one sentence answer. Eminent domain is the government taking over private land for supposed public purposes.
Member Kevin W. 1985 says, "What was the most memorable debate for you?"
Oh, Kennedy Nixon by far. It was substantive, it was respectful, it was detailed, it was informative. And before I go, I want to remind everyone, I won 2 medals at the Maryland Senior Olympics. I'm going to the Nationals. And then following that, your incredibly athletic mother, an Ironman triathlete, also won 2 medals, not in track, but in swimming. And we are both going to the National Senior Games. And she did it in a much tougher age group than I did because she's so much younger.
That's pretty incredible, huh?
Yeah, she's amazing.
I just pinned the link to the Lichtman Live post show. This is a short one today, so if you want to come hang out, keep chatting, I'll be on my channel um, if you want to.
Any more questions?
Yes.
I can take 3 more.
Um, Andrew of 8UK says, or UQ says, "I was wondering what policy you disagree with most that Harris listed in the debate."
Climate change, clearly, that was a mess. She did not have a coherent policy on climate change and wanted to have it both ways.
Gotcha. All right. Is that any final thoughts on the debate from you, Dad?
Yes, uh, this debate could not have been more different than the first one. I think Harris, wasn't perfect, but I'm not sure anyone ever was perfect in a debate except maybe Kennedy and Nixon over 60 years ago. No one else has come close to that. But she was good, maybe very good. And Trump was awful in every regard, rambling, insulting, off the rails, lacking any kind of vision or policy. And, this is not a biased view. As you know, my political analysis is totally nonpartisan. But again, I deliberately issued my prediction before the debate because I want to bring home to everyone that it's governing, not campaigning, that counts. And I don't pivot my predictions on events of the campaign. Final check on the poll, Sam?
Yes, and I want to actually ask one more question from our moderator, Sean, because he does such great work for us, and he specifically asked me to
Absolutely.
ask you this question. He says, in terms of the U.S. Senate race, I think it's safe to say that John Tester is most endangered incumbent Democrat running for re-election. However, Montanans seem to be very independent-minded and seem to like Tester. It's still a very red state. How much do you think the fact that Tester is raising far more money than Sheehy and Sheehy's degrading comments about Native Americans will affect the outcome of this election?
Yeah, Republicans again are acting very foolishly in a state that they should easily win. Republicans win it by big double digits in presidential elections. But Tester is very popular. He's a very effective senator. And the fact that he's raising more money doesn't matter for presidential elections, but matters a lot for Senate elections. I would rate that race as a toss-up. Any
Gotcha.
other questions before we go and check the poll?
Nope. Let's check the poll. The poll is we've got
Wow.
6,331 votes, and 94% say Kamala Harris won the debate.
Wow.
Yep.
As we said, that's a skewed sample, but even in a skewed sample, that's pretty overwhelming.
Pretty overwhelming. All right.
All right.
If you want to keep chatting, I'll be on. Say goodbye, Dad.
Goodbye, and we'll see you. God, what is today? Tuesday. We'll see you in a couple of days on Thursday when, kind of the fallout from the debate will be a lot clearer.
Yes, and also breaking news. After our live, we will be live with Mr. Beat on his channel, so stay tuned for that as well.
Will I be on with Mr. Beat?
Yes,
What time?
right after this stream on Thursday.
Oh, that's on Thursday. Okay, I was
Not
going to say, I've
tonight,
got a
not
bunch of
tonight.
interviews lined up now. You
No,
scared me.
no, you're
Got
good.
it.
You're good. All right.
Mr. Beat, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
All
See you,
right.
Dad.
Bye, everyone.